All right. So today we're meeting in this format to discuss the Frost Poems assignment. The main goals are listed on the presentation document that I have here. First, I'd like to just open the floor for any questions you have. I have a couple students here, so maybe you have a question in mind. Then I'm going to discuss the prompt specifically on how to generate a thesis. I have also collected a handful of essay beginnings from previous students to kind of show you what direction they took theirs in. I'll talk to you guys about the resource I have for developing a thesis. And then lastly, I'm going to kind of try a live diagram of my thoughts. If you're in the room right now, maybe you could help me with that. If not, then that's fine too. But yeah, I'll show you how to make a Venn diagram and what direction you could go with that. I'm hoping this can be done in, I don't know, 30 minutes or so. If you got to go, that's fine. I'm recording it, so I will upload it. And if it goes over, that's fine too. So here we go. If you have any questions, go ahead and type them in the chat or turn off your mic and ask them. And then I'll make sure to address them as we proceed forward. I'll wait for a sec for you. All right, so I don't see any questions from those in the chat. I will note a couple questions that I got online from the check-in forms. Thank you for those of you who already filled out the check-in form for the week. It's available in the online document that I posted. If you look at the presentation right now, you'll see my tab. I've posted this document to help you kind of track what you should be doing over the course of the week. Okay, so a few students asked, I didn't know that we had to use two different poems in the essay. How does that work? Another question was, when is the rough draft due? And my goal is to have it due on Thursday. Excuse me, let me correct that. On Friday, as I've noted on Classroom. Over the weekend, I'd like to pair you up with probably groups of 3, depending how many people turn it in, and to do some peer feedback. Now that we're this far into the closure, it's definitely hard to enforce due dates and grades and things for these assignments, as they really is what we would have been working on if we were in class last week. So I have to be flexible. I have to be understanding of where you guys are coming from as far as your needs. And a lot of kids just don't have access. So I can't say that it's absolutely due on a certain day, but I'll give you a guideline in case you want to take part in some of the activities we have to get better at our analytical writing skills. So that's a pretty wishy-washy answer, but try to get it to me by Friday. If that doesn't work for you, let me know. So yeah, we'll talk about the Venn diagram, and I think that's all the questions. So I'll check one more time. The chat's clear. We will proceed. Okay, so let's take a peek at a few docs. I'll delete these. All right, so the prompt asks, oops, I'm on the wrong document here. Okay, so we're going to go all the way down here. Wow, sorry about the wait here as we scroll slowly down. Lord God. Okay, all the way to page 8. Okay, so first off, choose 2 of the poems and then tell me how Frost suggests we address the darkness which underlies his observations. What a broad topic to be asking you about. Many students will read the prompt and say, okay, I just have to look for darkness, and then they'll stop there with it, and they won't really think about what that could mean. They just look for dark things versus light things. And maybe I've trained you to do this because we harped on this so much with previous literature, but I think the term darkness is a little bit more broad than just, you know, the color dark versus light. Um, and then how we address the darkness is a whole nother factor. So, what actual things do we do to address the thing that we might identify as the darkness? Um, Not to obfuscate so much, but let's go over to the thesis document that's also posted. I have had this posted on the assignment from the start. Maybe haven't been pointing um, at this thing that often, but it's there now. And I also attach it to the thesis work for this week. Um, Here's kind of what my helpful text looks like. By the way, if you want to get links to all this, if you go to bit.ly/frostyboy with a capital F, it will load this document, which contains the links. If the F is lowercase, you get a very different Google Doc, and it's confusing and weird. So have fun with that. Okay, so the short of it is this: life is dark, difficult, rough, mundane, brutal, unfair, hard, and probably a lot of other stuff too. Um, Frost illustrates these realities in his poems, although it is subtle. You have to figure that out for yourself, not completely explicit. So, how should we face this hard reality of life? Frost gives us some tips. I love birches a lot, but ultimately, you need to ask yourself, what does Frost tell us about how we should live our lives? So I have provided 4 questions to help you build that. What you want to do is look at multiple poems and ask, what's the lesson here? What is he telling us about our behavior and how we should reframe our way of living? And so, yeah, we'll talk more about how to get to this answer as we address 2 poems specifically. Um, but I hope this is a useful document for you. Um, Before I move on to the next um, bullet point, if you're still in the chat, feel free to ask questions or tell me to stop if I need to explain something more, and then I'll move along to the next thing I was going to say. We'll still be on number 2 here on the agenda. All right. I think it's working. All right. I wore a hat today because it was snowing out, so it felt appropriate. Let's go to the next thing. So I'm still in presenter mode. You should be able to see this document move along down here. I have collected titles and first sentences of last year's essays. So I went through them this morning and asked myself which first off, which essays had a sweet title that helped kind of preview what the essay was going to be about. And then I just looked at the first sentence of each of them and tried to pull first sentences or maybe the first 2 sentences to help show you how the student began this discussion. I did not copy the thesis statements except for one of the entries that I'll point out. I'm not going to read these all word for word to you, but if you go to the document, you can feel free to do that. So again, it's bit.ly/uppercase F Frosty Boy. Okay. So the first thing I'll say is please avoid starting your essay by titling it Darkness, Frost Poems, Birches, and Out, or whatever combination of 2 poems that you might have. We want to avoid just general, I don't know, non-specific starts. I would wait to end your essay before titling it, but once you have the title, it should be able to signal really what you're talking about in your essay. First sentences that might be rather vague. What is the darkness that underlies Frost's observations? I read a couple essays that said that. That's just restating the prompt, so don't do that. Try to make some kind of statement or clarity, some clear, insightful message right from the start. So we'll take a look at a few. Here's one. Trading in Tradition was the title of this poem. Excuse me, this essay. And it started with a sort of hooking sentence. Have you ever questioned a tradition or routine? And then in Mending Wall and After Apple Picking, we have an analysis of how tradition was challenged in both of those poems. Both of them represent a very routine outdoors activity. The building of the wall, the picking of apples, and the student expertly combined that discussion of both of those. I thought that was cool. I'm just going to pick out a few more of these. Frost comments on the darkness of separation. So the clear focus here is about the process of separation, or the how people are separate from each other. Seems kind of relevant for right now. This is a one sentence introduction, so this contains the thesis. I'll read it. In the poems Mending Wall and After Apple Picking by Robert Frost, the author sheds light on humanity's need to separate people by experiences, appearances, and familial ties, and analyzes the harmful effects that this discrimination and separation has on individuals. Wow. So that's a pretty action-packed sentence, but that seems to be a good claim, and I'd love to read that essay. We'll read a couple more here. I wanted to note Darkness, bad title, but I thought the first sentence was solid. Life is full of choices. Decisions made will greatly impact the type of life that one lives. So it's about your decisions. Maybe change darkness to decisions for that title. And you can see the pairs of poems that these students have focused on. I really loved this one. I want to say this is a student who's a senior now. It can be said that nostalgia is a dirty liar that insists the past was better than it seemed. Robert Frost warns us of the dangers of reminiscing, and I believe I cut off the rest of it, but you get the idea. The focus is nostalgia. This one, I think, is another senior we have at Canton Prep this year. Frost, how do we address the darkness in life? We have all had points in our lives where we feel as if the universe is against us, as if our lives could just not get a worse. I guess maybe not against there. Again, we have birches and apple picking focused on. So I hope that was helpful for you to see a few different ways that students have focused on it. There's a lot of different ways you can take these poems. I think the focus on nostalgia, how we separate ourselves from others, any kind of key questions he's making about life, the dangers of reminiscing. Let's see. This one doesn't really get a lot specific here. The repetition of life, the loss of the loss of a purpose to work. That one is great without out. You know, I hope that helped you kind of see where a few people took this. You can go ahead and click on the Frosty Boy link here and come and take a closer look at some of these. The second thing I'll say is once you post your prospective thesis, hopefully by midweek this week, you'll be able to compare yours with other students that have also posted one, and then maybe change and morph to make yours better. Of course, I have literally nothing better to do, so I'll be sending you messages and replying to your questions. Yeah, so if you're just joining us, feel free to answer questions or ask questions in the chat, and I'll be happy to address them as we move right along. So welcome. Thank you for joining us. And I will now wait a second before we move on to the third thing here, diagramming your thoughts, and give you a chance to type questions if you have them. And I'll drink a sip of coffee. Okay. All right, we're going to talk about the Venn diagramming. Okay, so Again, back to my presentation document. I have sort of started my Venn diagram example. I really tried to be done with this already, but I couldn't do it in time. So I've been having a lot of fun answering your questions on the Google Forms. So how do you do this in Google Docs? My assumption is that you'll probably type or write this by hand on a piece of paper. But if you want to do it in Google Docs, all you got to do is click Insert. Should be able to see this in presentation mode. Let me just double check. Yep, for sure. Can I pin this? I think so. You should just click on Insert, Drawing, New. And then you're presented with a sort of canvas. What I've done is I've inserted some pictures, or some shapes. I choose a circle, make a sort of egg shape. You can really make your Venn diagram shaped with anything you would like. Make this transparent, and then as you work, you can kind of be more efficient by just hitting Control V and doing that, copying it. Can make it bigger. Oh gosh, here we go. Will it work? Not sure. And then once we're in, you can click the text box feature and then just start to type your text in to create your Venn diagram. So I don't want to save this, so I think I'm going to delete it once I get here. So I've got one kind of going here. I would like to compare two poems, Out Out and Birches. So at this point, I really feel like I'm talking to myself. So I'm going to try to think out loud a lot. I'm going to totally offer the chance for anybody in the chat to go ahead and type what they think I should add. But for now, I'd like to kind of identify a few key elements in each poem and kind of where they might fall. So first off, I might ask myself, what are some of the dominant features of each of the poems? I just remembered that I forgot to grab my hard copies of the poems, and they're downstairs. But oh no, I disconnected my keyboard. I can load them up on my other screen, so that's okay. Ooh, I've typed a thing. Just delete my whole thing. I did. Concerning. There we go. Okay, so one of the strongest elements of Out Out, I remember, was the allusion to Macbeth. So I'm going to make the allusion detail there. Something similar in Birches, if you read my annotations or saw my last video, was the allusion to the Romantic poets. So in line, so we're going to Birches. I believe it was in line. Come on, line 13. So in line 13, he talks about, heaven coming down, and it looks like the inner dome of heaven, which kind of relates to Kublai Khan from my reading. Maybe I'm being kind of crazy, but I thought there was definitely two types of illusion. But these illusions were very different in that one of them was an allusion to like a positive thing. And then the other illusion for Macbeth was that he is basically, it's a very negative sort of outlook. Shortness of life. With that idea, though, the shortness of life, I think both of these poems definitely address the topic of life and what it means to live like a fulfilling life. The fault that we have in Out Out is that the boy basically tries to shorten his life by moving forward to becoming a man at an age where he really should be out playing. Whereas in Birches, we have old man looking back in time thinking, man, I like to escape in my mind and kind of think as a child. So um, I heard someone text something on the chat, and I'll check it in a second here. Um, Importance of play. Um, oh, it's a risky click over chat. Paradox. Big boy doing a man work through a child. Okay. I'm looking at out. Open to tab. Oh, no, 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 no. I am struggling because I took my normal keyboard and connected it to my computer. So I only have a mouse on my other computer. It's kind of hilarious. Oh no. History. Open recently closed tab. Paste and go. Okay, sweet. Got it. Um, so the detail that I saw here, thank you to Ayat. The paradox 23 to 24 and out. Um, Yes, that's excellent detail. We are looking at the comparison between man and boy, right? So I'm going to put these on different sides of the Venn diagram. So um, boy doing man's work, and then this is on 23 through 24. And then we have over here in Birches, we have man imagining self as boy, who, let's say, to avoid work or escape from work. I mean, because what is the thing that you want to escape from when you're thinking, oh, life is hard right now? It's usually some job related thing. Maybe I'm making a maybe that's kind of a claim that I'm making, but that's something I definitely would stand behind. um, I'll look back at the poem and see if there's specific lines that might happen, or he might reveal that to us. um, Line 42 is kind of where he explicitly says, "I'd like to go back." So I'll go ahead and say 42 here. Why am I writing line numbers? Well, when it comes time to start writing this essay, you're going to want to know, hey, where's all my evidence at? And if I'm doing the thinking now, drop down those breadcrumb trail, drop down the breadcrumb trail so you can find your way out of the woods, um, as you say. Also, something else to note as I create my Venn diagram, I'm thinking spatially as well. So, like things in this area, if I mirror them over to the other side, they kind of relate to each other. So, just trying to think spatially and where everything kind of fits. You don't have to do it like that, but it just helps you be organized a little bit. All right. Yes. Okay. I got that paradox thing. I like using the word paradox. Um, think for a little bit more. I like to think a little structurally. How do these poems differ um, as far as rhyme and meter goes? Maybe that could be something we follow. Oh, I'm thinking about sound elements. Um, we have this sort of cracking ice in birches. If you go to birches, um, I do not want to scroll that far. Actually, it's just 2 pages. I can do it. Okay. Um, Whoa, I've highlighted this on my other computer. You see this, you hear, well, you also see the sort of sound of this cracking sort of ice craze their enamel, many colored shed crystal shells shattering. We have that shimmery sound, the sort of cracking sound in these lines. So, just like an out, which also starts with some very strong sound words, some onomatopoeia, we could definitely relate the two. Um, we're not going to stop there, though. We got to say more. Um, Practice. Words that comes in there. Um, I guess I'll put this here sort of in the middle and the same on the other side. The, we have the saw. With the imagery of the setting. Okay. Now, how are these different? Well, in birches, I feel like this is a very positive type of imagery. Positive imagery, you got to go more than that. It's heavenly. It's otherworldly. This imagery provides a sense of escape and awe and wonder. Let me fix my words. It says sense. Right? However, on the other side, in out out, the um, imagery provides a sense of confusion and dread and oncoming threat. It is this sort of, I don't want to use the word ominous so much, but it's not it makes you feel awkward because you're like, oh, what a beautiful scene, and then you hear this whole time. So it's unsettling. I like that word. So these are all words I could use in my analysis. So we see Robert Frost employing the same technique in each one, but each of them has a different outcome. So what I'm kind of getting at here is if you're providing some analysis where you compare the poems, you may also then try to determine, let's see, what happens if I do this? Oh, that's fine. Okay. Can I do that? Yes. Okay. So if you make an editing change to something, don't do anything else with your keyboard besides hitting control Y, and it will apply that same change. So I'm just going to kind of color code these. Oopsie, I moved this bounding box, so I have to redo it. So I'm just kind of color coding these things so you can kind of see them work across here. So what I'm trying to say is if you've identified some similarity, maybe try to go a little deeper and see the differences as well that kind of play out as you pull those details apart from each poem. Find how they link together in that region or in that sort of domain of, let's say, sound words, but then also how they have different effects. And that really helps make your analysis a little more intricate and detailed. How many comparisons do you think we should have? Excellent question. Let's see here. That's a hard question. It depends. Depends on how far you can take each one. So if you don't have a lot to say about some of the comparisons, they're just sort of like surface level incidental things that may be similar, then you'll probably need more of them. But I could picture myself writing an entire paragraph just on these red boxed ideas. I mean, you could really stretch that out for a whole paragraph to talk about the function of imagery in each of the poems. So um, I think it, like I hate to say it depends, but for instance, I don't really think I have enough to make a whole paragraph about the illusion piece. So I would probably need to combine that with some more analysis and another factor. So the illusion piece may need to be combined with something else as well. Um, Ultimately, your goal is to address the lesson the poem is teaching us about. So I think both of these both land on this idea of the importance of play. How did I get to that? I probably looked more at one of the poems and said, what is the most resonating message or lesson out of this poem? And then I looked really hard in the other poem to see if I could pull it out of there. Now, this one, it works pretty good because it's literally about a boy playing. And this one, I think the play aspect is probably stronger in Birch's, but then we can pull it out of Out and kind of assume that, oh, he should have been playing. If the boy was out playing like a normal kid, then he wouldn't have been killed by the saw, which is kind of nice too, to look at the poem and from this perspective, because it lets you kind of push away the more dark and depressing aspects of Out and focus more on the happiness that lies within Birch's, which I just feel like feels a little bit better for the way things are right now. I hope that makes sense. So that's a good question. I hope I answered how many do you need to have. I would think minimum, if you do a really good job of discussing each thing, probably 3 comparison and contrasts. Um, but if you want to build an essay that has an organic structure, you also consider, the length of the poem and making sure you've covered all the important details in each. And it may not have to be organized just by this thing, and this thing, organized by element, but instead by, insight that you got as you read each poem. Now, it does get kind of complicated writing about 2 poems. Um, okay. I think I can add some more. So I've talked about illusion. We talked about like detail figurative language with this red piece, maybe some of that imagery. We got that paradox piece, which I actually think is more related to the theme. This might be the root of our analysis. So excellent addition to the conversation. Yeah, you get props for that. I'm going to color code this. Let's see here. I feel like there's something I'm missing. I'm going to go look back at my annotations and think. If you've got anything else, drop her in the chat. I'm thinking maybe use of meter or at least pauses. I'm looking at Birch's and there's like really no significant like middle of the line pauses or caesura. I think that's how you say it. Can't do that. I don't have a keyboard. I'm about to type on the wrong computer. Um, I've highlighted one. There's another in line 5 on Birch's, but after that, there's really nothing stopping the flow of the poem. I'll highlight this one, line 5. So I'm looking for periods in the middle of lines in Birch's. I'm going to jump over to Out and ask, does that happen more or less there? I've found 1. I found 2. I found 3. Found 4. I'm going to stop counting and just do it. If you're jumping into the Frost Poems document, you should be able to find this, my highlights here. We forgot the most important one of the entire poem on line 27. It looks like this is happening way more. I've got 8 different examples of where he literally, 9, where he, as some students say, uses a full stop, okay, to stop and make us think, look at the situation, and oh my gosh, there's a 10th here, and weigh the gravity of what's happened. There's so much meaning that can be packed into just simply adding that period. I'm looking into my microphone like it's my camera. Adding that period in the middle of a line to just make you say, all right, think about what's happened here. So let's talk about structure, punctuation. All right. Oh no, I'm running out of room. All right. Once you see, maybe if you make this with Google Docs, you should probably like make the boxes bigger or the text smaller. If you hold down Shift and select things, so you can select multiple. So here we go. Oh, no, 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 no. Control Z undoes whatever you did. Only works on computers, sadly, not in real life when you're cutting boards to build your house. Okay, so here we go. We're gonna put the use of caesura. We'll just call this structure right now, but we'll also call it caesura. Um, full stops. They're used in both, and I think when they do happen, there's definitely some considerations. I mean, look at the what comes after he says in line 52 in Birch's, Earth's the right place for love. I mean, that is just the huge thematic piece or thing to consider for that poem. So he does use it at key times in Birch's, but the feeling that I get with Birch's is that he lets his mind wander a lot more. I mean, he has this sort of like imaginative should I really say imaginative structure? Just sort of like um lets his mind flow and escape to another world. He doesn't take time to pause. The concerns of the world, like death, work, they don't interrupt him. It's a little wordy for a Venn diagram, but the ideas are flowing, so I just got to get them down. Because trust me, you won't remember them even 10 minutes later if you don't write it down. So that's my getting a little preachy here. Let's pick another color. It's got to be purple. All right. And we'll label that one. And we'll just jump to the other. Oh, no, 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 no. We're going to do this. Jump to the other side. Drag this over here. I'm just hitting Control V to Control C, Control V to quickly copy the box. Here and out structurally, whoo, baby. Um, tons of midline stops. Why Frost makes us consider the weight of the situation. I mean, the poem doesn't, talking back about out, but the poem doesn't really just sort of break the news to you and say the end. It like progressively gets worse. It says at the end of line 9 and nothing happened. But that's super ironic, right? Because everything happened until this kid died. By the way, irony is going to be the thing for both of these poems. I need to write just irony in the middle of this all. Sorry, this is not very structured in me saying this in the middle of my other thought, but if I don't write it down, I'll forget it. Every single person that writes this essay should write about irony. Every single poem that Frost writes has deep irony. In fact, I'm going to just make this the most obnoxious colors yeah ever did see here. Text color. I can't change the color. Okay. So make sure you write about irony and ask how it functions here. And it can reveal itself in many ways. Like, for instance, through a paradox, as we've noticed earlier. That's ironic because the thing, him being a boy, shouldn't be doing the man's work. That's ironic because our expectation is that he will be doing play, not working. The same goes for the other side. This old man or this man, you should be at work, not walking around the woods, imagining yourself climbing trees like a agile young lad. Okay. So irony comes up everywhere. You want to use the word irony a bunch. Okay. But not too much. Be specific. Um, so back to this idea, how does the structure work for us in the poem? Tons of midline stops. Why? Frost makes us consider the weight of the situation. Each moment heightens what's at stake. We see situation progressively worsening at each juncture. All right. So we see an absolute death spiral open up and reveal to us the sad mystery of life that we are all in a situation where the maker will meet you. That's a dark, dark thing to say right now. Sorry. Um, where you are not really in control of. Are you in control though of your situation? Man, I shouldn't say that because both of these kids, both of these speakers, well, not the speaker out, but the subject, the boy, he might be able to walk away from that and say, "I'm gonna go play baseball or something." Um, Frost, the man, he's totally has takes control of his situation. He lets his mind roam and into something a little bit more positive than his daily stresses. So maybe we do have control over what we're dealing with. I'll just write the question: how much control have our situation? If you use the Macbeth illusion, you'll probably say, life is short and meaningless. It was your time anyways when you went to go. But I don't know. Maybe that's a poor outlook on life to just think, it's just, what does the Macbeth poem say? Oops, I don't have a tab there. Um, tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow. Life's a walking shadow that frets his hour upon the stage. Life is way too short. Okay, so let's accept that. Life is too short. Well, why do you got to spend time in your life worrying about all these things when you should let your mind move to something more positive and, something that's actually, I don't know, closer to heaven as discussed in Birch's. Um, yeah. Sorry about my formatting here. I think it's a little bit more clear now. I had to make the circles a little bit bigger. Okay, so I've identified illusion, um, the sounds that are created in each of the poems, so imagery specifically. We've talked about paradoxes and how they work into the theme of the poems. You definitely want to talk about the theme of the poems because that's really the answer to the question, right? You have to tell me, how should we go about living our lives? Well, I think we should let ourselves escape. I think we should not force people to be adults all the time. Let them play. There's an importance in play. So that's kind of my answer to the theme. And then lastly, I've identified structure as a piece of the poem. Um, the hardest thing for you will probably be the discussion of structure, but that's okay. If you want to jump into that, that's going to be an important piece to the analysis. I'm going to actually look at the calendar for the week. Um, let's see here. I'm looking at the AP sessions planned um, on Wednesday at noon. If you look on the online learning guide, AP is going to post, or I think live stream, a 45-minute lesson that functions to explain the function of structure in a text. Sorry, my wordiness. The learning target is explain the function of structure in a text. So you'll see some actual AP teachers from around the US. They video in and they're going to live stream it on YouTube. Thursdays is explain the function of contrast within a text, and then Friday's lesson is explain the function of specific words and phrases in a text. I'm going to watch all these when you guys watch them, so I'm hoping they're going to be good, but they're going to do these lessons on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday at noon each day. And the direct link to those is in the online learning guide. Okay, so at this point, I've created a Venn diagram and I can generate a thesis statement, hopefully. Um, to structure the essay, I can at least say I could easily focus on each of these colors, one for each paragraph. Um, Another idea for structure is possibly, and I don't have a good visual for you, is you could focus on one poem in a paragraph and then a separate poem in the second body paragraph. And then in the third body paragraph, discuss how they both work together. So you could kind of structure it poem, poem, both poems. Um, I don't know. I think I'd rather just pick each color, do like green first, red, no, I'm sorry, blue first, red, purple, and then green last, maybe theme last. Or you could do theme first and then talk about how each of these elements reveals the theme. It's really up to you how to decide, but you got to pick, and that's the hardest part is just picking. I'm going to click save here, and you'll be able to see this available for your perusal on page whatever this is. I think page 2, 3 of my doc. Okay, I said it was going to go half hour. We're at about 48 minutes. If you have any questions remaining or things I need to address, concerns, or just want to say thank you to me, that's fine too. Go ahead and hit me up in the chat window or turn off your mic and ask, and then I'll sign off. I'm already getting emails from people about their thesis, so thank you for that. Oh, I just saw a question I missed earlier. Okay, student asked, and I'm not saying your names just because it's going to be recorded and just, student privacy. So this one was asked about 15 minutes ago or so. For the flip grid, do we have to make event? Okay, posting a Venn diagram, is it for points? So everything that I've assigned from this week out, anything new, I am not supposed to be giving you points for it or making it part of your grade. The reason is because we're closed. So our school's closed. So it's really tough to say, all right, we're going to make this assignment to help only the kids that can access it because they have internet at home, for instance. So what I do get to count as a grade still is stuff that I assigned before we were closed. So the Frost essay was assigned a week or two before we closed. So we're going to continue with that. I'm trying to be flexible with deadlines though. And of course, you may not, depending, I mean, I'm assuming our situation is still going to change. I mean, just keep looking at the news. So my hope is that we'll be back by the 6th, and then I can say, all right, these things are due now, and I might be able to give people time to kind of catch up on some of the things and then assign points. But if our situation is more drawn out, then it's hard to answer it and say it's yes, it will be worth points or not. As for now, if it's something that's in Infinite Campus, like do it for points, and I'm going to try to be fair and reasonable and be flexible with you guys. So I hope I've sort of answered your question, but at this point, I'm not assigning points for the Venn diagram. Lo siento. And thanks for the feedback. Any other questions? I hope that answered your question to the best I could as far as the flip grids. I'm hoping that you look forward to the feedback. I've got a whole setup here to help kind of get your questions answered quickly and email you guys back when you send me. So feel free to post or email me anything you need, post in Classroom, and I'll be on it. I am now going to end the recording. So thank you for watching.